Hey everybody, Dr. Samantha Luther here with SJL Wellness, pediatric chiropractor, pediatric and family chiropractor here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and going to be talking with you guys about proprioceptive seekers. Sounds like a really big fancy word, and it is, but once we explain it, break it down, it might explain a lot of things that might go on with your kiddo and kind of give you a little bit of that aha moment. So let's go ahead and get started. With proprioceptive seekers and like kids that seek proprioception, one of the things I'm going to bring to light is a lot of these kiddos are going to have issues or have bouts of head banging, teeth grinding, any kind of oral stimulation. So they might chew on pens, chew on pencils, like suck on their shirt, suck on a towel. It'll almost be like soaked, saturated. Any of those that you just find like they're sensing, like their sensory processing might be just a little bit off. We're gonna get to how like proprioception works and how how the body relates that information and the brain relates or doesn't relate it back. So we'll get to that. But like if your kiddo is one of those that does have some of those instances where they're doing some of those things, I'm gonna bring light to maybe why they're doing that. But what it mainly details back down to is they're just seeking that stimulation to their brain. Many times we talk about brain-body connection and how the body sends signals to the brain. Well, there's actually two ways that the body and the brain communicate to each other. Obviously, we're going to have the brain talking to the body, so sending signals away, and then we're going to have the body bringing signals back to the brain. So that's going to be all of our senses, all the sensory things that we have going on. Because if we don't have those signals firing back up to the brain properly, it's not going to be the best communication, and things are just going to kind of get thrown off a little bit. So with proprioception, it's the body's and the brain's ability to know where your body is in space. So if I were to put my hand, shut my eyes, put my hand about 3 inches away from my face, I know approximately where my hand is. If I were to move it on top of my head, I know that this is probably about, a couple inches. This might be a foot. I just can tell that within my body because my proprioceptive receptors are firing properly and they know how to send that information back to my brain. A lot of times with these kiddos, that isn't quite the case. They might have issues with that, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into it. But I want you to start to think about proprioception being sensory feedback, not quite clicking as it should. So with proprioception, like I said, we talk about the brain talking to the body. We now want the body to go back and talk to the brain. Within that, proprioception can be a very calming mechanism. It is a very calming mechanism within our bodies. It lets our body just know like, hey, everything's okay. If you think about people, and like sometimes even with the elderly, then when you have them lift one leg up and stand on one leg and shut their eyes, they might tipsy-tobby, fall over, or even, fall. That's just saying that like there's something going off within their proprioception. Their body's not quite able to, track or to catch or to right themselves. We'll get into something called the righting reflex here in a little bit that kind of hones in on a lot of this. But proprioception is actually very calming to our brain. It just lets us know, hey, everything's okay. But within everything, there's always kind of two different parts of a system. So we have proprioception, which is calming, and then we have nociception, which is almost like noise within the brain, and like noise just is constantly firing. And so like the two, you can't have both at the same time. You're gonna have one that's gonna be more dominant versus the other. And so with kiddos that have a constant nociception going on, they're gonna be like our high paced kids. Like they are constantly going, they can't sit down and sit still. They are loud, they are bouncing off the walls, which most people think, oh, like they're just high energy, but sometimes if that's all the time, that is just too much. And so we need to help bring that back down. And why they are doing all of this high energy stuff, and why they can't just sit, or why they're chewing on stuff, why they're head banging, their body is craving calmness, and that movement is actually an interesting way of facilitating that movement. So going back, and I went on a little tangent there, going back with proprioception being calm, nociception meaning noise, they're like two identical keys that can fit into one lock. So like I say, if a kiddo has their nociception key in that lock, in that deadbolt, there's going to be a lot of noise going on within their minds and in their brains. There's going to be a lot of clutter. There's going to be a lot of action. There's going to be a lot of, it's actually really irritating to them and annoying to them too, but they don't know why. So reacting in those ways that we find, you know, sometimes even frightening. Like if a kid is banging their head against a tile wall, that is absolutely frightening to a mother. It's like, but their bodies are craving that movement within those proprioceptive receptors, and that's the only way that their body knows how. So we're gonna kind of get into that now, because their body is just seeking that calmness. So within our spine, we're going to talk about where a lot of, so let me go into proprioceptive proprioceptive receptors, there we go. So we have different receptors within our spine, within our body. A lot of those are found within our spine, and this is how kind of chiropractic relates into helping these kiddos out immensely. So within our spine, we have different receptors, and those proprioceptors are going to be in different parts. So I'm going to show you this lovely, and I'm sorry if this is backwards to you guys, but if we go ahead and we go all the way up to the top of our spine right up here, you can see like the first two little vertebrae, that holds 33% of our proprioceptive fibers within our body. 33%. And so if there is any sort of pressure, any sort of misalignment, those receptors in there that allow for the body to know where it's at in space, to allow for it to understand that everything's okay, that it doesn't need like that movement that it's craving, 33% is right up there at the top. So as you can see, and we'll get into this, they got the head banging, we got the teeth grinding, we have the biting and stuff like that going on. But what their body and mind is craving, so proprioceptive receptors, say that 10 times, they sense movement. They sense healthy movement. It wants to know that it's in the right place. It wants to know that its body's correcting itself. And kind of to go on to that, a little bit of an offshoot here, is the righting reflex. We have a reflex within our body that if we go ahead and like have our eyes situated as we do, right here, they're nice and horizontal. If we have something that causes us to do this, our body is going to contort to try to keep those eyes nice and perpendicular with the ground, or parallel with the ground. So if you can imagine a kiddo that might be constantly stuck like this, they might start to do like odd neck movements. They're trying to feel for those receptives. They're trying to like, and this is done like almost subconsciously, you know, like some of these things are. So that's what's kind of interesting with these kiddos. But like our body will adapt to that righting reflex. So no matter what, that's like whenever you see someone and like their spine can be completely all crazy and scoliosis and whatever, but what you'll find is the head always tries to stay right within space. So whenever we start to see a kiddo like this, they might just do like the neck jutting and stuff like that. They're trying to get that proper movement somewhere within there that's going to send that calming mechanism back up into the brain. It's very interesting. And so then as you can imagine, with that upper cervical area there, the top two vertebrae in our spine house 33 within like a little 2-inch and a half area of our spine holds 33% of those proprioceptive fibers. And within that upper cervical spine, it's trying to induce the movement to those receptors. But the body's not naturally getting it. So you'll see kids that have like tics and stuff like that. They're trying to infiltrate that natural movement, that natural proprioception. And like there's just a blocking pathway within their brain that it's not happening. Like I mentioned before, like the jetting of the neck, They're trying to like right themselves. It's a sign. Head banging. Once again, they want that natural movement. They want that natural calmness. So like head banging, yeah, it can be terrifying, but it's the only way that their body right now is understanding, like, to get that correct sensory feedback back to the brain, and there's something blocking it. So this isn't a brain going to the body connection. This is a body going back and talking to the brain connection. The head banging, like the kids, once again, like I mentioned, chewing on shirts, chewing on clothing, almost till they're saturated, because it's all right within here, within the jaw, the teeth grinding. It's all within that little area of the spine right there, that they're just trying to get that natural movement happening within there. So that way, you know, it's just one of those, it's almost like I say, the reflex. It's a reflex. It's supposed to naturally happen, and if it's not naturally happening, that's whenever, as chiropractic, we can go in there and help facilitate that movement, help kick on the proprioceptive fibers and receptors, and kick off the nociception, the loud, the nagging, the constant, like, you know, and you even see young kids that have issues with, you know, like with the proprioceptive seekers or just the sensory seekers, like they almost just like, almost sometimes want to self like go, you know, blow, because there's just this lack of communication going on, and they want it so badly. So that's why they're doing all of these other things to kind of help facilitate that natural calmness within those receptors. So it's pretty important, and also can be very life-changing. To talk a little bit further about where the rest of these proprioceptive fibers are, all the way through the rest of our spine. So each of these little segments here, and each two of these bones make a joint. Each of those joints is going to give us more abundance of amount of proprioceptive fibers. So actually 60% is here, 33% is up in that upper neck, and then we have another 7% that's found just throughout other parts of the body. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's talk about like these kind of through here, the proprioceptive receptors within the rest of the spine. That's where you'll see kids like outlash, like with hitting, with crashing into things. They're high, like destructiveness, like with, you know, young boys, we think like, oh, they're just being boys. Yeah, sometimes like it's kind of giving us a little bit of an insight if it becomes a little bit too much. They're jumping, they're wrestling, they're just super aggressive, or otherwise they're also the ones that need that deep like hug and hold. They want that deep pressure hug and just like held for a while till their body can recognize that it's okay and that it's safe again, and then it can release back down. So like once that, you know, those nociception fibers are just too much, that holding and that tightness and that pressure allows their body to know like, okay, I can calm back down. Now on the other hand, with the wrestling and the jumping and the hitting and stuff like that, that's once again just letting that release out, all of that nociception, all that loudness, all that agitation. That's their way of just releasing that into their out of their body, but that's not healthy, and that's just their way of showing, and like their body showing like something just isn't quite clicking correctly here. With the other parts of our body that kind of have the other 7%, you'll find those just throughout, sometimes like within the ankle joints, within the groin area. That's a whole nother topic, but not a whole nother topic. But if you ever notice kiddos, they like to self-explore. But if it becomes like too much or becomes something that you feel that isn't healthy, that's where we can kind of look at some proprioceptive fibers within the lower part of the spine that their body just isn't quite for sure where they know where it is in space, and they're just kind of discovering all of that and trying to do it the way that their body knows how to best. So on that note, kind of moving forward on how chiropractic can help with this. And so within chiropractic, we're all about implementing great, healthy movement within our spine. The way that we find in these different areas of kiddos, if they're having, you know, where their body is locked into like nociception versus proprioception fibers kicking on, we do neurological scans here. That's going to show us exactly the areas of interruption within that, the body talking back to the brain. It's going to highlight that stuff bright red. It's going to show us those spots there. Once again, we're just all talking about the body brain connection. So many times you hear me talking about brain to body. This time we're working it back the other way, because if there's a lack of communication there, it's going to cause almost just like a raging storm within those kiddos' brains. Adults too. Don't think that this is just for kids. And we can notice that in adults, and we can get this as a whole nother webinar for a whole nother day. But like, if that connection is not getting back up to the brain's doing its best to say, hey, what signals are you needing? But if it's not getting the signals from the body, it's just going to be a storm. So you can only imagine. With chiropractic and implementing effective movement within the spine, that's what we do with our adjustments. With kids, it's usually very, very gentle. We want to, because they have so much going on, we don't want to implement another stress into their system. So it's going to be a nice, safe, gentle adjustment. But once again, with movement, finding out the exact areas of their spine that is having that interruption, and we apply that natural, healthy motion within their spine, it's going to allow those proprioceptive receptors to finally kick on and go, yes, yes, they're here. We're now going to take that key out of that was in locked in nociception, and we're going to go ahead and take this proprioceptive key and turn it back on. It's like safe, healthy movement. The head banging, once the motion within the upper cervical spine has been restored naturally and healthfully, the body's going to go, okay, yeah, hey, I know where I'm at in space. I know where my head is. I know how I'm feeling. My body's now talking to my brain, and now my brain's calmer. And I don't have to headbang. I don't have to chew on things. I don't have to, have a tantrum or be outlandish or be, over the top too much. Like, these are just all sensory things that kids sense so much in their day-to-day. And if they are unable to get the processing up to the brain, it's just going to be, like I say, that storm that just keeps happening, and just like a self-perpetual, wheel that just keeps collapsing upon them. And so any kids that like are on the spectrum or any thing like that, it's just all a lot of it's just neurology with them, and their body's just trying to communicate the way that it wants to, but it just doesn't have the means to, because somewhere within their nervous system the stress is locked on and that communication can't happen. And like I say, adjustments help facilitate that movement, that vibration that they need in order that they know, their body innately knows that is a healthy movement, that's a healthy vibration, and it's feeding back up to parts of the brain that adapt with that proprioception. I get a lot of parents to think there isn't a shot in this wild great earth that my kiddo, who is high strung, high paced, high everything, will sit for this. And that's just where you meet them where they're at on that first visit, and you're having to do scans and stuff like that. We show you what we're doing. They get intrigued by the scans. They think, what? That's happening within my body? Cool. But we just kind of show them. But what's really neat with that is that once they get adjusted, this amazing thing happens within their body, and they know that it's good. It's almost just like a person that might have never seen civilization, and they go drink water and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Same thing with a chiropractic and adjustment and these proprioceptive sensory kiddos. They know innately within themselves, from the inside out, that they are healing, that is a good thing for them. So now versus like whenever their spine is properly moving and those proprioceptive receptors can fire properly and the nociceptor ones are kind of shut off, they're going to want their adjustments. I have kids that crave their adjustments, that they come in here and they sit. And the mom's like, well, we've had a pretty good day. He's been kind of crazy, but whatever. And they just sit there for their adjustment. And afterwards, they either just smile, they laugh, they calm down. And it's just amazing that for a kid to understand nociception, proprioception, they don't give two hoots about that and don't even come close to understanding it and don't care to. But whenever their body innately knows and how they feel, there's no question for them. They get it, they understand it. We don't need to explain anymore to them. Mom and dad see it. And it's just really amazing to give a kid their life back before they even knew. Like, they always know that maybe like, dang it, like my body's just not processing the way I want it to. They don't think of it that way, but they're just like, so now I'm gonna act in this way, or grind my teeth, or headbang, or lash out, or any of those things. It's just that so much sensory processing is happening, but not at a healthy level because the proprioception is just off. So it takes time with them, but to have the biggest impact on a kid, and in my career, these are the kids that, oh my gosh, if I can give them, they're young kiddos a lot of the times, and to see them be able to become amazing teenagers, amazing adults, to be able to live out a life that maybe before, if all of that stress, all of that proprioception and sensory never got fixed, who knows where their life could have been. But now I at least know that chiropractic and a highly functioning nervous system for them has impacted their life in such a way that now maybe they feel more comfortable in their own skin. They can go and do things. They can go to sleepovers. They can go do sports. They can grow up, like I say, to have an amazing career. I know this sounds like, oh my gosh, they're just a kid. But kids turn into adults, and adults then have kids again. And I just firmly believe in giving every single individual and these kiddos the most, and like the most that they can to do with what they can, because I think every human being is like, has awesome potential. And to help someone give that potential is amazing. And parents, they want the best for their kids. And if they see their kiddos struggling, it's hard on mom and dad. It's hard on them not knowing maybe what's going on and not fixing the things that can work, you know, that aren't working for them, and just almost feeling like they've kind of maybe hit their wits end with it, and just like, well, this is just the way it is. I encourage you just to kind of keep seeking the things that work. Chiropractic can definitely help with this stuff. And just, yeah, I'm here for you guys. Sorry, I just get emotional with these things. But yeah, I'm here for you guys. There's definitely going to be a live in-house workshop one of these days. I'm going to post that. Keep following the Facebook and Instagram pages. There'll be some in-house stuff. But if there's anything that you feel that you want to talk to me about, private message me. I'm even going to give you guys my cell phone number. Personal cell phone number is 402-432-7702. And just reach out. If you're if you're very interested, intrigued, I'm here to privately talk with you. This is something that I hope we can collaborate on, and if there's anything I can do to help you and your family and your kiddo to live their best life, that just means that your family lives their best life, and that's what I'm all about. So like I say, be looking for an in-house workshop coming up in the near future. Would love to have, people in, and we'll just kind of keep going from there. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks.